Dysfunction is everywhere, in our families, in our cultures, and in our systems. And this is Dysfunctional, the podcast that helps you name the things that most people can't or won't see. Let's call it out, break it down, and maybe even start a bloody revolution. Let me tell you about today's first ever guest on Dysfunctional. Leona Waller is a writer and facilitator who helps people trust their body and emotions properly, way beyond what your typical Instagram influencer does for you. She is the co-creator of The Body Knows, which is an online community and newsletter using somatics and embodiment to help people to stop optimizing and start living. With a background in neuroscience and psychology, Leona creates spaces where people can shed the shoulds and come home to themselves, giving them the power and joy that is their birthright. This conversation is right up my street. We're tearing down some of the systems, getting into how embodiment itself can help you break free from the self-improvement trap and come home to everything that you always should have been. I'm super excited to start interviewing guests, and there's nowhere better to start than this episode. So get yourself comfortable, because it'll probably still be dysfunctional. Okay, so I'm very excited to be joined today by Leona.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Do you know you are my first guest on Dysfunctional?
I'm honored.
So before we get into what we're going to chat about today, because I am mega excited about that, why don't you tell me a little bit about who you are?
So I wear many hats, but really my passion in life is what I call embodiment. I'm a coach and a facilitator in that realm. And you can think of it similar to somatics. So understanding the energetic, physiological, emotional components of the body. And in short, using that to live a better life instead of trying to be floating heads that are accidentally attached to bodies. How can we dive deeper into our lived sensational experience and find peace, find self-acceptance, get off the hamster wheel and get into the present moment.
Yeah. And obviously I met you at Do Festival and was lucky enough to sit in one of the workshops that you co-facilitated. And then I've done some of your embodiment programs online. So I know all about it, but I do want to try and get in. I want to try and get into exactly what embodiment is today a bit more for people that are listening, because I do think it can be particularly good for people that find stillness hard, right?
Yes.
Which has been why I think I've really taken with it and run. But before we do that, tell me a little bit about how you got here, what led you to do embodiment work, and why you're so passionate about
it? So it's one of those stories where what I was struggling with and then the solution I found became my passion. I was so anxious. Oh my God. I was just a really anxious teenager, college student, 20-something. And I tried everything. I was like the personal development junkie. I had all of the books from 4-Hour Body to The Untethered Spirit, whichever soul spirit, I can never remember. And I was just consuming everything. And even that became this anxious obsession. I just consuming all of this self-help information, all these self-help podcasts, changing my life in so many different ways, trying to change my body, change my routine, change my sleeping habits, changing my eating habits. And it was all driven by this incredibly anxious feeling that there was something wrong, either with me or with the world around me. And eventually I stumbled upon embodiment, which in practice is just feeling what you're feeling. Let me slow down a little bit, because I want to be able to it's such a experience, and it's such a sensational experience, and how to bring it into words and how to bring it on a podcast is always a fun challenge. Um, but when this is what it feels like to me. For a long time, I felt like I, in some way, was trying to constrict, clench, shut down my experience, my emotions, what I was feeling. So the anxiety, the buzzing, the tension, it's almost like I was always trying to push those down, push those out of my experience.
Mm.
And through embodiment, I found instead the ability, it took a while, it wasn't a light switch, the ability to relax into what I was feeling. Like I said,
Mm.
that takes a while because a lot of us believe, whether we learned it from society, family, doesn't matter, but a lot of us believe that feeling bad is something we need to run from. It's something that's a sign that we're doing it wrong. Um, but when I finally learned to just relax into what I was feeling as it was, I found a massive amount of freedom and release and kind of the peace and the ease that I had spent a decade looking for and like running to while running away from all the bad things I was feeling. And I just had to turn around and look at it and sink into it. And there was the peace. And it was really that simple.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
that easy, but that simple.
That's one of the things that uh, I've found quite hard because obviously because I've done some of the embodiment stuff with you. When you try and explain it to somebody else, like you use these words like lean in or kind of like move with it, and you sort of just a second ago sort of did it in practice, right? There was that moment where you were constricting it and it was like you're trying to get control of what it was, and then you went, hang on a minute, let me just let go, and then you like found your flow again. And I do you feel like, just to rewind, I'm rewinding you a little bit here, do you feel like a lot of the things that you tried originally for your anxiety were all based around like trying to find stillness, trying to stop the anxiety? So like feeling anxiety as like when I feel my anxiety, it's a very physical thing. Yeah, like it's very physical when my body goes crazy like that. And
Mhm.
nearly everything that I've tried, and I was coming to embodiment, I feel like before I did your stuff, just naturally, but wouldn't have framed it as that. But do
Mm.
you feel like a lot of the stuff out there that you were like looking at and going through is like trying to get you to stop, to stay still, and to restrict and stop the anxiety?
Absolutely. And not just like physically still, mentally still, like they want your focus, the proverbial they. We believe that we should be able to sit still calmly. We should be able to focus on one task. Our inner world should be still and balanced. Like we get so many signs that somehow we should be more down regulated, more chill all the time. Like
Mm.
that's the assumption that all the time you should just be able to take 5 deep breaths. This was a classic one that I heard from therapists all the time. When I was feeling anxious, sit down, slow down, take 5 deep breaths, and plug into sensation. So, what does it feel like? My sweater on my body? What am I hearing? Um, and that was almost like giving a microphone to the part of me that felt so unstill.
Mm.
It felt like I was trying to put it in a box. And this is what I really think the opposite of embodiment is that top down control. Like
Yeah.
you telling your body, you telling your emotions what you should be feeling, what they should be feeling,
Mm.
instead of asking, instead of allowing them to tell you what they need.
Do you think that at some stage when you were a child, you would have known that intuitively, and then somewhere along the line, like society has stopped you moving like that? Because like well, let's talk about it now. Actually, I will go there now. I like having done one of your embodiment programs. What was it called? The last one that I did?
Art of rejuvenation.
Yeah, right. So there was a live element to that, right? And some of the things that you were getting us to do, and we were allowed to turn our cameras off and stuff. Um, but some of the things that you were getting us to do, if I was doing them in public or around other people, I might feel quite silly, right? I might feel silly doing it. There's lots of like, well, I can't even remember if you tell us what to do, but it's more like you give us a sense of freedom that it's normal to do that. And so, like, I feel like it feels very intuitive. And so maybe like what you do is give permission. Is that right? Is that right? Am I
Yeah,
right in
that's
what
a
I'm
good way of
saying?
putting it.
But society, and this is going to be some of the stuff that I want to come on to talk about today as well, if we can. Society doesn't give you permission to do what you need, right?
Okay, let me collect my thoughts because I have a lot to say. So first, I mean, I think kids, all kids, and you can see this, like little kids are masters at moving energy. This is now how I think of emotion. I think of emotion as energy. Yeah, it has a backstory, but sometimes the backstory doesn't really matter in the moment. What matters is that I somehow move the energy that is inside of me. Little kids know how to do this so easily. Like, this is the magic of toddlers. They sobbing their eyes out, and then 2 seconds later giggling and having a great time. Like, they just move through it so quickly, and they're joyful. Like, who I would be very impressed if you know a toddler that isn't a good percentage of the time joyful, which is one of the metrics that I work towards. I don't, happy isn't a great word, right? But like, I would like to be joyful sometimes. I would like to be laughing in delight. I would like to feel light. And so little kids know how to do this. And then we go to school. It's disruptive to the class. You need to sit still. You need to listen. You need to be quiet so that the teacher can talk. And I don't disagree that we all need to learn how to control our impulses. Like, that is a part of growing up, is that prefrontal cortex develops and we get to think before we act. And that separation between what you are feeling and what you are doing is very important. It's what keeps us out of jail.
Yeah.
But we also have the maturity and the capacity to have safe places in our lives where we can move that energy, whatever it is. But most of us, I know, I believed very much. I was so kind of intoxicated by the idea of what like a successful person was, what an impressive person was. Like, I spent a lot of energy trying to figure out how to conform and be very successful in that conforming. And it's like, well, those people don't need to go home and cry. Those people don't need to go home and shake like maniacs. Those people don't need to go sing along loudly to songs in their car. Like, they are controlled. They are controlled all the time. I don't know if it's possible to be controlled like that all of the time without having some sort of outlet.
I definitely feel and hear that, like, that belief that we should be still, because when I got sober, right, that I went on this journey of like meditation was the first thing that everybody said to try, right? And I remember intuitively when I would be trying to like focus on my breath and sit still and try and be reflective, I remember that like sometimes I'd be breathing and I'd start swaying, but the voice in my head would be telling me, you're not doing it properly because you need to sway. And it's still, even that, it still comes in now when I'm doing breath work. Sometimes I'll be led down, breathe in, and I have to override the voice in my head that if like, because sometimes like a part of my body will just start doing something silly, right? My arm will be going up and down or something like that. And I have to override the voice in my head that goes, that I don't know, seems to want to tell me that that means that I'm not doing it properly, that I must be still and
Mhm.
control and like fully in control of what I'm doing. But on the flip side of that, I feel like society knows deep down that movement's the right thing. Because, you know, people say dance like nobody's watching all of the time, but people like, but people promote that as if it's an ideology that's like unreachable though. Do you know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
something that you can't do, or that you need to, I don't know, take drugs or alcohol to
Mhm.
like to be able to do. And so embodiment is, I'm asking you, is embodiment the permission to listen to your body?
Yeah, let's call it that. I feel like embodiment has so many definitions. Like I've been writing about it for a couple years now, and I struggle with coming up with a definition for it. Um, it's for me on like the simplest level, it's letting what is inside be expressed on the outside.
Hmm.
So permission is absolutely a part of that. Like I
Yeah.
don't have to shove what I am feeling inside.
Mm.
And I think there's just like, and I don't know if everybody falls prey to this as strongly as I did. Um, this desire to conform, this desire to fit in, this desire to be accepted. Um, I was actively building my identity around those things. And
Mm.
so for me, it was massive to not be looking outside, not be, like you said, checking with, like, well, the teacher said that I have to do it this way all the time. Of course, that is one teacher from one lineage in one modality. But I was like trying to collect all of the experts and know exactly the right way to do it. And it was, I never considered the idea that like my body had intelligence and my
Mm.
emotions had intelligence. Like basically anything I was feeling inside had an intelligence. Um, and that from there came a lot of permission and a lot of just insight and realization of like, oh, I'm not I'm not an idiot. I'm not an idiot. Like I'm a deeply feeling human being who actually knows a lot when I check in with my gut that I've been ignoring.
Yeah,
I'm curious if I can ask you a question.
you can.
I'm curious, like, your kind of journey into embodiment, for lack of a better term. Like, what it's like in your body when you feel the impulse to move, to shake, and where you think that comes from, and what you're trying to like do with it.
Yeah, for me, I've always said, so I've always said to people that I work out every day, and the reason I work out every day is because I feel like I have this level of extra energy in my body that if I don't find a way to get out into the universe, it will twist me up like
Mm-hmm.
a Coke can, yeah? By the end of the day, if I haven't got rid of that energy, the energy will twist me up. And I think through like originally it was breath work with me, and then when I started doing breath work and I realized that my body moved in that way and that that was the best thing for me, then I found myself, you know, I've got like a sauna tent in my back garden. I'd be in that and I would be like actively, intuitively, without thinking, like pulling facial expressions as if there was like things, this sounds crazy, but like things trapped in my face. I would move my arms in a way that like would be as if I was releasing, like letting things out back into the universe, like away from me, and then making movements where I would almost be like replacing what I'd let out into the universe and letting it in. And I'll be honest with you, even as I'm saying it now, I feel comfortable saying it to you because I know that you know the practice. But even as I'm saying it, I feel, you know, I feel crazy. And like I can do it on my own in the sauna tent at home when I know nobody's watching. It's another level then for me to be able to do it in front of people, because I've spent my life hiding, yeah. And before, and this is what I really do want to talk about today. When I started the healing journey, I think I sometimes still do now, get lost in it just being another way to make me acceptable to everybody around me. So then I become a part of the healing community, spiritual community, whatever you want to call it. And then I feel like I need to make sure that I'm doing that right. So when everybody's sitting in the lotus position and all that, I feel like I need to get there. Or if I have a bad day and life doesn't feel great, it's like, still more work to do.
Oh God, that's my least favorite mantra.
Well, look, let's go there now, because I'm a big fan of your Substack, right? I read a lot of your Substack, and some of the recent posts, particularly I think the most recent one that I was reading before the podcast today, talks a little bit about the kind of, what should we call it, the self-development trap. In there, you describe it as being a little bit like a Chinese finger trap, to give you a little bit of a segue there. But tell us a little bit more about what you were saying in that most recent post. You know the post I'm on about? Yeah. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. So this post is part 1 of 2, and I think by the time this podcast comes out, part 2 will be out. But basically, it's bringing together a lot of ideas that I've been thinking about for a few years and haven't been able to express. As I pulled farther back from the kind of mainstream personal development wellness community and got more into my niche of embodiment. And I just want to say, for people who've like really never heard of embodiment, what it looks like on a tangible level can be whatever you want it to look like. But what it looks like for a lot of people is using breath, movement, and sound to shake out, to sway out, to release energy. And so breath work is a beautiful example of embodiment, using your breath, and then in Josh's breath work, the scream at the end, to like release energy. Like that's exactly it. And so you can also do that exercising. You can do that. I do a lot of shaking, a lot of swaying, a lot of like yoga turned a little bit more primal and weird as I'm just following my own impulses. So it can look like anything you want it to look like. And if you're interested in trying a bit, my recommendation would just be put on a song that really moves you and start with some deep exhales and just a gentle bounce and shake, and just see if that feels good. And if it feels good, follow what feels good. So I just want to drop that in there for people who are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So as I was saying, as I got more and more into embodiment, you might notice that it has an aspect of it that's pretty wild. That's like my favorite word for it is untamed. Like I'm not in the box anymore. I'm not trying to fit the mold. And that is like, for me, a very important part of embodiment is not judging what is not socially acceptable and deciding that I can't express it. As long as I am being kind, compassionate, and honest, I give myself permission to express. That doesn't mean I always do. There's plenty of times that I feel too uncomfortable to be real, too uncomfortable to let out my full, goofy, spazzy, sarcastic self. But in theory, I have permission to do it. If I want to take permission, that's up to whatever I'm feeling in the moment. But I noticed as I was getting deeper and deeper into this embodiment perspective, we can call it, I less and less of mainstream personal development was resonating with me at all. And often a lot of it was making me feel really icky. And it took me a while to figure out why, but eventually, exactly like what you said, I just realized, I was like, I don't think a lot of this self-improvement stuff is actually about me being the most expressed, most unleashed, most liberated version of me. I think this is about me being more socially acceptable. And the underlying premise is that when you are more socially acceptable, when you are prettier, when you are thinner, when you have bigger muscles, when you make more money, you will be more socially acceptable, and therefore you will be more happy. Like, that is the premise of it, is that as you get deeper into conforming, eventually you will find happiness. And I was like, oh my God. Like, just, that's the mountain I've been climbing all this time, is a mountain that is not about getting to my deepest self. It's about getting to the version of me that's most acceptable, that's most pleasing, that's most digestible, that's most easy to be around. I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's like, well-behaved women don't make history, or something like that. Like, I just had to think about it. And I was like, I don't want to be remembered as being the least upsetting human being. Like, that's not what I'm here to be. And so in the post I break down, I get more into kind of the aspects of mainstream self-improvement that are really damaging and can actually hold us back, like the endless empowerment, which on one side looks phenomenal. Like, I love the idea of empowerment. I've spent a lot of my life living by it, that what I feel and what I experience is in my hands. But also, that means if you follow that philosophy to the very end of the road, if you are feeling bad, that is a you problem, and it means that you failed.
Yeah.
So that doesn't feel super great. I'm going to stop talking in case you want to add something.
Well, no, I do. I want to talk a bit about this empowerment thing, right? Because I see a lot of it. I think that I get a lot of flack from men's spaces, particularly because, like, they say that I am, by highlighting issues, you're like perpetuating victimhood, right? So a lot of people will say to me that I talk a lot about sort of, and this is what all this the podcast is about, right? It's highlighting systems and structures and toxic or abusive, even dysfunctional systems that cause us, I think, appropriately, to feel difficult emotions, right? And to struggle with them, right? And so it might be a little bit hard, but are we able to, like, give a real life example of what we mean by, like, how the way that society is set up, how just pushing constant empowerment can be problematic? Do you understand the question?
So I'm imagining, like, this isn't my current situation, but this has been my situation, where I wasn't making a lot of money. I was working on a sailboat, make very little money. It was epic, but I had very little money. And that sort of empowerment mindset, that victim mindset, was always telling me that. And I was stressed. Like, I had a lot of stress. I still had bills, and every week or every month was a struggle. And this empowerment mindset was telling me that I shouldn't have any sort of stress. I shouldn't have any sort of feeling about the fact that this was stressful. I should just, like, grab life by the reins and, I don't know, go sell trinkets on a beach or something. Now, I don't think this is the best example, but we're going to finish it.
No. Yeah, go on. You go on. Finish it.
And So what that created in me, and this is getting a little heady, but what that created in me is actually, instead of being able to just be like, I'm stressed about my financial situation and I'm going to go work to change it, I also had all this energy constantly berating myself for being stressed. So instead of being like, I am stressed and I'm going to just go do something about it, I was like, you're not being like, you can't be stressed. You're in victim mindset, creator consciousness, abundance, manifestation. Just do your affirmations and it will come. And like, that did not help me 1 ounce. That did not help me make more money, and it did not help me feel better. Like, what helped me feel better is when I was like, I'm going to stop trying to control how I think. And I'm going to let myself bitch about this to some of my friends. And then I'm going to go get a second job. I'm going to stop spending all my time writing affirmations about how I am the master of my own destiny. And I'm going to go figure my shit out.
Yeah. And that, because that, look, I think it's a perfect example. I always give the example, which is similar, really, which is when I was working in a factory and I had no spare money, and like the washing machine's making a noise, and I'm thinking, if that washing machine breaks, I don't know how I'm going to wash the kids' clothes, right? Because I haven't got any spare money.
Yeah.
And so this kind of like empowerment thing would tell me to read a book, and by the end of it, I won't worry about that. And if I am worried about it, then the problem lies in me, and I'm not able to just deal with life on life's terms and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's when, that's when that becomes really problematic, because actually what we should be doing is highlighting the societal issues that allow, a working person like that to be living on the breadline, especially in such like rich parts of society, right? Self-help, self-development in that way, that empowerment stuff, all of it, it all looks at you completely and entirely only through an individual lens, and stops you then acting like you said, which is like, you need to listen to the pain. You need to hear the pain, and what's the pain and the stress telling you, rather than thinking, I shouldn't be feeling stressed. That means that my spiritual practice isn't, where it should be.
Yeah.
You mentioned something in there, and I've got the same opinion as you on it, and I know that it's controversial, so I'm going to ask you about it. And that is gratitude lists. Talk to me about your opinion on gratitude lists.
Okay.
And I want you to upset some people.
I can do that. So, first of all, maybe this is my caveat where I try not to accept people, because I am, in my heart, a people pleaser. There's like, all of this is a balance, like everything in moderation, including moderation. That being said, and I think this also goes for empowerment. Like I was raised, for better or for worse, in a very empowered mindset. Like my mom is very much, both my parents are like, for better or worse, like, quit your bitching and go do something about it. Yeah. That is the kind of ethos of my family. And I appreciate that I was given the mindset that if I work hard enough, I can change things. That being said, we take it too far. There is such thing as taking something too far. You don't have to apply it to the nth degree. So, a little bit different, but I wanted to say that too.
No, but just quickly before you go on to the gratitude, because I do think that it perfectly rounds off what we were just saying, right? Which is empowerment, which is you have the power to do whatever you want to do, right? It, like, there is some benefit into really feeling empowered to feel like you can get out of a situation. Mm-hmm. But at some point that crosses over into shut up and get on with it, accept anything that happens to you and just get on with it, right? And that, that is what becomes like a breeding ground for abuse, right? I think that's why a lot of these, like a lot of gurus end up like creating cult-like things, because they breed these people who think that, anything's possible with them if you just ignore everything that's going on in society. So I do think that was I think
and
that
how
brought together what we're saying.
Empowerment so now all mixed in with manifestation and your manifestation mindset and just like believe it's real, abundance mindset, whatever. And so when bad things happen to you, it's your fucking fault.
Yeah.
That's the nth degree of that. Like and that is just not true. That's
No.
just, I am very spiritual. I believe in all sorts of magical, kooky things. And I do not believe that everything bad that happens to you is your fault.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Or that you should be able to, that bad things can happen to you and you should be able to just sort of be able to let it go. Like you're some sort of, I don't know, some sort of spiritual God who just doesn't get affected by bad shit. Like I think it's very human when I think you're supposed to feel shit when shit happens, right?
This is okay. This is perfect. We're getting into gratitude lists. I can see how the long arc, the long game. Um, so I studied neuroscience before I got into all this woo-woo nonsense. And we are taught in neuroscience and in biology in general about evolution and that everything that we have evolved for a reason evolutionarily. It is not a mistake that we evolved emotions. It is not a mistake that we evolved a way of expressing energy out of our body. It is not a mistake that we evolved to feel things in reaction to the world around us. It is not the goal to stop feeling. And I think that's where the pinnacle we've been taught by all this self-improvement stuff is to feel happy all the time, is to feel good all the time.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, unpleasant emotions are unpleasant. Heavy emotions are heavy. I've been through some heavy shit. I've been unable to get out of bed for months. I've been through shit. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's a walk in the park, but we are built to get through it. We are built to move through those heavy emotions as long as we let them flow. They serve a purpose. And I can't, I can get into what I think the metaphysical purpose of grief is, but the point is that they serve a purpose. And that a lot of the work in self-improvement, self-help, wellness is now about bypassing those emotions because we've decided anything unpleasant is bad because our entire society is based around comfort. And so we're just trying to build all of these pillow padded walls around us so that we don't feel anything. But I think the nth degree of that is that we all feel really numb and like nothing is satisfying. So I will stick with the heavy emotions and trust their process in order to actually feel alive and fulfilled and satisfied at the end of the day, which brings us to gratitude lists.
We've kept on the same path. It's good. We're 40 minutes in and we've done it once. Right, we're there. Go, gratitude lists.
So my problem with gratitude lists is that on their most surface level, they're incredibly bypassing. Stop feeling what you're feeling. Make a list of everything you should be grateful for. Do you feel grateful for it right now? Doesn't matter. Make a list about it. And having done this, there is nothing more shame-inducing than making a list of everything you should feel grateful for when you aren't feeling grateful. It's a Chinese finger trap. That's why self-improvement is a Chinese finger trap. You're trying to pull out of it and you just make yourself feel worse.
So some people, and by the way, actually, before I, because I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Okay.
But before I do, it's a very when you get into recovery, so when you get sober, right? And I went through a 12-step fellowship. Gratitude lists are the fucking be all and end all of it, right?
Oh.
Everybody writes a gratitude list every night. Now, look, I do think that maybe at the beginning when there was some benefit to them at the beginning, right? Maybe because you just couldn't see the wood from the trees, and you
Mhm.
thought life was horrendous, and like I forgot that I had children and a reason to live and all of that. So like, but you know what I mean? Like internally, emotionally, I just I forgot that there was a lot to want to be alive for because I felt in such a bad place. So maybe maybe there was a space for it at the beginning, but they are pushed a lot there. And I remember that, yeah, I'm going to go back on everything I've just said because even early on, I remember writing them, you know, and you feel shit, right? And you feel like you don't want to be here. And so then you start writing, well, I got a house, I got kids, I've got a bed to sleep in at night. So then you just get this massive fucking guilt list now, right?
Mhm.
So not only do I feel shit now, because I'm not stupid, I know the reasons I'm supposed to feel happy. That's part of what I feel shit about. Is that I look at, but it is right when I feel down, I look around at all the good I've got in my life and don't and still feel shit. That's like
Mhm.
so shaming. So when I write it down, it doesn't go, forgot. It doesn't do that to me, right? So like the devil's advocate that I was going to play, but I mean, I think I've almost talked myself out of it already. Is like some people will say, yeah, but if you do it every night, it will go in the end. You're not having that. I can see in your face. You're like,
Okay. So I do have like a gratitude list alternative because
oh, okay,
focusing on the positive can be important. Like we all on the positive. We've been this person. I know that I've been this person sometimes. No matter what happens, all they're doing is seeing all the ways it could have been better. And you're like, yeah, you're going to feel like shit for the rest of your life, no matter
yeah,
what happens, because you have a very strong neural habit to focus on the negative. And like all of this stuff is comes down to these synaptic connections and where your deepest groove is. And if you have a habit of constantly seeing the negative, you have to work to break out of that.
yeah,
Simple. And a gratitude list might help you do that. Some people, it makes them feel worse. And so you have to notice if the gratitude list at the end of it, you're feeling better or if you're feeling worse. And that comes
mm,
back to like, nobody can give you the right answer for you except you.
yeah,
My alternative to the gratitude list, so my problem with it is, again, that it's top down, that we are telling ourselves how to feel. What if instead you sank into your body, you put on a song that helped you feel serene and peaceful, you sank into your body, you took a deep breath, and you asked, what do I appreciate about my life right now? And you just asked, not things I should be grateful for, but what do I appreciate right now? I'm feeling into it in this moment. I don't appreciate that there's construction outside, but we're focusing on what I do appreciate. I appreciate
I
that.
can't hear it. I can't hear it, buddy.
Okay, good. I appreciate that my body feels really good. Like I'm a little sore from a workout a couple days ago, but I'm warm and nothing feels too tight. And then I breathe into that. And it took me a moment to like really feel into it, but there, I'm like breathing into something enjoyable. And I think this is actually what a lot of the self improvement, personal development misses is we're so focused on figuring out how to make ourselves feel something. Like we're putting all of these things on top. And the ability to feel grateful, the ability to feel peaceful, the ability to feel appreciative, to feel happy, all of those states are states that exist in our bodies and are states that we can access through our bodies. We
Mm,
don't need to put other things on top to get to them. We need to take off the things that are holding us back from them and then give ourselves time and space to find where they are in our
Yeah.
bodies. And it's not going to be immediate, but it's there. Like
Yeah.
your body can feel on the most basic level pleasure, sensation that is pleasurable anytime. But
It's
go ahead.
no, sorry, I've interrupted you. But what I was going to say is that what you've described just feels in every way so much more accessible, so much better. That is like getting into your body and turning on a song. There's like action to it. Like you're actively doing something. You're not just sitting and like when you write a gratitude list. Now, what I would say is if it becomes a routine that you do of a morning, of an evening, and you know, like it becomes that moment where you go, you know, life's all right, and you're just creating space in your day to day every evening to make sure that you don't miss some of those great moments that you had in the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything, right? If used appropriately and in the right way, it has its space. But what tends to happen is everyone's like, "Oh, you feel ungrateful? You should write a gratitude list." It's like, no, hang on a minute. But I love that idea of like, you know, coming into your body and hearing your body. And what was interesting that you probably did almost accidentally was that you went through the like, I'm pissed off that there's construction there. And I'm imagining that like if you're in your body and doing that and you're like starting to move, there's like a rigorous movement there. Like I'm pissed off that there's construction there, right? And then so like you shake that out and then you're like, but what do I feel good about? And then after shaking that out, like you can see I'm doing it. Your body's already starting to naturally move. We're both intuitively going, oh yeah. And then you can allow them sensations to move through. The body becomes like, you know, it becomes that movement space where it's not just fucking up, trapped in your head. Have I ever told you, have you ever heard me say the rotten fish analogy in the room?
Yes, I have
You have
actually.
heard it,
Yeah, it's on a
right?
previous podcast, I think.
Yeah, okay. But like the quick version of it is if you don't, you know, if you're trying to clean a room, you can't just put loads of good shit on top of the fish, right? You need to get rid of the fish because eventually that will overtake everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that when you let your body move, and you talked about like, I think earlier on, being in a car and putting music on, right? And like singing, like even the type of music that you put on, you know, you might put on fucking Linkin Park and be screamy, right? Or you might put on some like binaural Zen beats, right? But either one of them will help you to move and to release in the way that your body wants to.
Mm-hmm. And on like a very neuros nervous system level. So my business partner who I write the Substack with, Anna Ali, she is a genius at all of this stuff. So I've just learned all of this from her. But so there's like nervous system regulation being in the middle, right? And then there's hyperarousal, which is like a lot of energy that's buzzing and needing to get out. And then there's hypoarousal, which is like this lethargy. Like it's the fight or flight is hyperarousal, and hypoarousal is the freeze. So all of them are like nervous system trauma responses. And different people, I'm probably getting this wrong, but what I took away, and maybe what will resonate with people, is like a lot of us are always adding some sort of stimulation that deregulates us. We're like, oh, I need to listen to Zen music. I'm antsy, whatever. I need to listen to Zen music. I need to have de-stimulation. I need to bring my nervous system down that way. But sometimes you need to turn it up. Like sometimes you need
Oh,
more stimulation
yeah.
to break through your hyper or hypoarousal. Sometimes you need to get up and shake and move. And I know that I can connect to that so deeply. I spent 8 years trying to do stillness meditation. And every time I got up off the cushion, I felt worse because I needed stimulation, not destimulation. I
Yeah.
didn't need Zen music. I needed fucking Linkin Park.
Yeah. That's so real. That do you know what? And that has been when I think about embodiment, and I'm going to move us on to another segment before we get towards the end because I want to talk about it. That has been one of the single biggest realizations and one of the fundamental problems and issues that I've faced on my own healing journey, spiritual journey, call it whatever you want to call it, was that belief that when I was in that state where I was twisting up, that what I needed to do was go zen and untwist it. That I so often need to go more into it. You know, I talk about I have a blowout playing football sometimes, and that like does a big thing. But I even think like the rise of ice bathing and stuff like that. When I ice bath, and I do it quite a lot, I don't do it in the way that is often presented, which is to get in it and breathe and calm your body, right? I just like that snap cold that fires my system and does what it needs to do. And I talk a lot in the corporate stuff that I do about how you need to understand your nervous system and know what it needs, because that calming breathing, that breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth slowly and trying to find zen, has made my life so much worse on so many occasions, because it doesn't work in the moment. It's not what I need. And then I feel shamed to fuck because I'm like, it's not working and I can't get it to work for me either. When all I needed to do was lean in and put, something like Linkin Park on.
Can I just jump in? Like that?
You can indeed.
For me, that is the biggest problem with all of us turning towards experts who are experts, but all of these people on the internet and books, whatever, that have advice. And when their modality or whatever doesn't work for us, we assume that we are broken.
Yeah.
And that, to me, I think is what caused my anxiety to go from bad to worse, is this isn't working for me. I must be broken.
Yeah.
That's all.
And by the way, just quickly, I reckon, I don't want to be too controversial. Actually, I do. I like being controversial. There's a lot of people in this space leading and facilitating sessions who will also happily, often implicitly, allow you to believe that you must be broken if their practice isn't working on you. Mm-hmm. That's a whole nother layer to get into. Mm-hmm. But there is a lot of people facilitating who will let you believe when you leave their session, if it didn't work, it's because you're broken. Mm-hmm. Rather than being like, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe this isn't the right practice. Maybe I'm not the right facilitator. Maybe this wasn't the right space. There's 101 different reasons why this might not have worked for you, and none of them involve you being the problem. But there's not enough facilitators out there saying that kind of thing, which is the truth.
Totally.
I want to talk. It's going to be fairly briefly, I think, if I can. But all of what we've said, right? You've talked a lot about, and people should go and check your Substack out, because you can tell that the pieces that you write, you've put a lot into putting them together in the way that you put them together, yeah? And they like really highlight every sort of nuance that we're talking about. But all of what we're talking about is that our problem has been about trying to conform, trying to be part of, and it's trying to be part of, I think, the capitalist, and you've talked a bit about this either in that one or previous posts, about it being like a moral obligation to sort yourself out to be good enough again to fit into what I call a hyper-capitalist society. Mm-hmm. Can you speak to that a little bit, or have I summed it up entirely? I'm supposed to pitch it up and let you talk about it, and I've just fucking summed up the whole thing.
Yeah, you did a pretty good job. Let me see if I have anything else to add. So I think the only thing that I want to add is, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist. I think that conspiracies are really hard to keep quiet because people like to talk. But I will just say, for those in the audience that may be just wary of blaming capitalism or corporations for something, how I think about it is like this. If the people in power are benefiting from something, whether or not they created it, they're not going to work to change it. Yeah. It's going to become ensconced in the system. And self-improvement a lot of this, so I've heard it described as like the fitness to spirituality pipeline, which I think is very funny and very real. So a lot of people start of like, oh, I'm going to improve my health. I'm going to feel a little bit better. And they start to improve their body. And then they're like, oh, what about ice baths? What about meditation? What about breath work? Kind of this like right on the edge between like physical improvement and mental improvement. And then from there, they get more into like the mental side of things. And they're like, we start to heal trauma. We start to talk about inner parts. We start to work towards motivation. And in that section, specifically, what can be very popular is becoming very successful, becoming very productive, becoming like, I mean, the productivity podcasts that exist, the systems, all of that. And then it's sold as, and then you will have more time. And then you'll have more time to be happy. And then you'll have more time to do the things that you love. So it's always sold to us as this, like, eventually you're going to do this and you're going to get happy. But what that does in the meantime is it puts the onus on us to become much more effective workers. It assumes that we can get ahead and be successful in this hyper-capitalist society, which you've talked about on podcasts. That's really fucking hard. And so it makes us better worker bees, but telling us that by being better worker bees, we are going to be more happy. So I don't really care if corporations proliferated the idea that your happiness is in your hands and that it's a personal problem. If you don't feel happy and that being more productive will mean you have more time, I don't care if corporations were behind that. They are not trying to change it. They're having no problem holding up that idea. So that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, and look, you highlight a really good point, because I think, like, when I talk about the toxic, dysfunctional system as I see it, or like hyper-capitalism, which is different to capitalism, and people can go and listen. I've talked on other podcasts about how I'm not against capitalism. It's this kind of hyper-capitalism, money over everything that I'm against. And it's not that, there's a bunch of people sat on the table at the top that are just making sure that we all think that we can improve our way out of it. But I do think that we get lost. We all collectively get lost because we conform, we go along with it, and we don't have the opportunity to step back and go, fucking hell, we have created a society now, this is what I believe anyway, where normal is being a good, functional, like productive member of society for 60 hours minimum a week. And if you're not those things, and productive is only productive if it is working in some way to make more money, normally for someone else, right? And not all of us have skill set or personality types that fit the systems that are built now, right? And so we've got lost in the idea that if you aren't that, well, then we label people as disordered in today's world, right? We say that you're the problem and there's something wrong with you. And then, there's a whole conversation to be had around like what we do to those people to try and make them get back to being conforming and get back to being, a fully fledgling, functioning member of that society.
And it starts in school. Like, I don't, for me, there's no clearer example than trying to get a bunch of 6-year-olds to sit still in a desk for 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like,
and then scratching our heads when they can't. Being like, there's this student, he can't sit still for 6 hours.
Yeah, he can't read a book and write an essay. Maybe that's not what they're asking 6-year-olds to do, but like...
Oh, you'll be surprised. You know what's crazy? I'm interrupted you a little bit here, but in the UK, there's these things called SATs tests, which is when kids are 11, they basically test the shit out of these kids. And actually, really, the real point of SATs test is to make sure the teachers are doing their job properly.
Yeah.
But I always find it funny that the SATs test every year falls on the same week as Children's Mental Health Week. which is when we all scratch our heads going, oh, why have the children got so many mental health struggles? And all of the kids that are 11 are fucking worried stiff about some big exam that they've got to do to figure out which set they're going to be in the following year. I mean, the fucking, the the paradox of it that people can't seem to work out.
Yeah, this just endless assumption that the ideal human, the ideal version of ourselves is one that is so deeply conforming to this system,
Yeah.
is just the part that I'm like, there's one type. There are billions of humans, and there is one type of person that conforms to the system. And we don't have to go down this rabbit hole, but I find it very funny that we call that neurotypical. And I'm like, everyone I know then is neurodivergent.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the trap, right? Which kind of highlights and brings together everything that we've talked about, right? Is if you're not careful, the self-improvement trap is that, you know, if you can't conform to that, if you can't fit into the system the way that it's built, it's never a problem with the system. It's always a problem with you. That's the trap. The trap is that you never step back and go, hang on a minute, what systems and structures am I living in right now? And do they need to change? Maybe the problem's not me. Maybe I've been reacting exactly appropriately to a fucking shit system, to put it bluntly.
Yeah. And I will drop in there because I did a very good job at extricating myself from the system when I was in my 20s. Even if you have stepped back from the system, even if you aren't trapped in a cubicle for 8 hours a day, we are all still existing in the system of thought that says you should be this way. And that is what makes you likable and lovable and acceptable.
Yeah.
And that system of thought is crippling.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Yes. Throw the mic at the wall. That system, that's my life. But that is it. It's that system of thought. That goes back to what I said at the beginning, which is I have to be sat in the sauna on my own to be able to do what I know works for me, that makes me feel better and makes me feel good and makes me to be able to seize the day. It is highly dysfunctional that I can only do the exact right thing for me if I'm completely alone and nobody's watching me. That is crazy when you say it like that. Wow. You're gonna be a regular guest. You're the first guest and you're gonna be the regular guest. But
I can't wait.
But there is a final question that I will be asking everybody that comes on my podcast from now on. And that is, what is your most dysfunctional trait? And why do you secretly love it?
Okay.
Just take a moment for how banging a question that is.
That's a great question.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Right, now you may answer.
I love that you like wove in some of your philosophy into the question. Okay, I'm trying to pick a good answer because I have a few dysfunctional traits. Okay, so one is I'm a spaz. I am disorganized. I do not follow through on very many projects. I am like ADD to a T, where I am entirely interest driven. And if I'm not interested in it, I cannot get myself to do it to save my life.
Yeah.
And it has created a life that has been quite disjointed. The longest job I had before I worked for myself was 2 years. Plenty of times my mother has asked me when I'm going to get my life together. And I love it. I have had I'm one of those people where people are like, oh, you've lived like 3 or 4 lives. I'm like, yeah, because I can't pick and because I don't want to pick and because I jump from one thing to the next and then I get absolutely obsessed for about 2 months and then I couldn't care less and I move on. And I'm master of none. And I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. I've tried to change it. Also, I have to say that I have tried to change it, and that made me absolutely miserable. So I've given up on that. I swung to the other end of the spectrum into full embrace. And I have a kooky life and people who understand it. And if people in my life think it's weird, then they don't end up staying in my life for very long. And I love it. It's really fun. I live a really fun life because of it.
I can see how much you love it when you talk about it. And it's a good answer. I think, again, it like summarizes everything that we've said, right? Because the question is, what is your most dysfunctional trait? And then ultimately, you've just described the thing that you love about yourself and the fact that we exist in a dysfunctional system that tells you that you must be wrong because it doesn't conform. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's like, if the system didn't exist, it wouldn't be dysfunctional. It would just be you.
Yeah. Yeah. If it wasn't expected that I had a consistent resume and stayed in jobs for 5 to 10 years, if it wasn't expected that I was already saving up for retirement, even though I'm in my early 30s, it would be fine. But instead, people are like, oh, you're falling behind. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm living a great life.
Yeah. Incredible. Leona, this has been incredible. I am very happy that this turned out to be the first episode that I've ever had a guest on Dysfunctional. And I am absolutely certain that this is going to only be part one of many parts, I'd imagine. Is there anywhere that we can direct people to come and find you? Like, I'm definitely putting your Substack in the notes. Is there anything else? Is there any place you want to tell people that they should come and see you?
The Substack is really it. The Body Knows at Substack, or pardon me, thebodyknows.substack.com. I don't do social media. Nope, can't do it. So I just write every other week. You can find me there.
Yes, I love that as well, by the way. This has been brilliant. Can't wait to put it out to people, and we'll see everyone on the next one.
Thanks, Josh. Water your plant.
I did tell you it would be dysfunctional, so thank you for sticking around till the end here. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, then please help me to grow Dysfunctional by sharing with your friends on social media. You can find me at Josh_FFW. And then wherever you're listening to this or watching this, please make sure that you've liked and subscribed, left us a 5-star review and a comment if your platform allows it. And I'll see you on the next one.